Okay, I'll just move up a little. So the management of DME has moved from the macular lasers of the 80s to the turn of the millennium, where steroids brought in pharmacotherapy, to the current anti-VEGF era. So the management challenges can be straight and simple, and the tough tackles will take the straight and simple first. So from the guiding principles and of the trials, the questions that come to us first is what works. So a number of trials have shown that Resolve for ranibizumab, Bolt for bevacizumab, Vista Vivid for Eylea showed that unequivocally anti-VEGFs all have high efficacy versus sham. But then the question, which one do we choose? What works best? So DRCR protocol 2 showed us that of the three, aflibercept and ranibizumab were better decidedly than bevacizumab. And then 2 years, and then 1 year, aflibercept better than all three. And with macular edema, bevacizumab decidedly did the worst. So in poor vision patients, aflibercept and ranibizumab better. But if vision is better than 612, then you can use either of the three. Now, what works if the patient presents late? This is the main issue. If the patient is chronic, either untreated or with laser dyes. So just a case of a patient who would come in the early as part of the pandemic, a 63-year-old female with chronic diabetic hypertension, HbA1c is 8.5, vision 636, severe NPDR, DME at that point, came in 5 months late because of the pandemic delay. Again, vision was still 636, but you can see on the multi-color image, it's a little more hazy because there was a thin wispy hemorrhage, and you can actually see that on the OCT also, a little more of the dots. HbA1c had worsened a bit. PDR with DME, we instituted PRP and ranibizumab. Over 6 injections, over 8 months of ranibizumab, equity improved. So what's important to note is that even if the patient is chronic, the 6-month interval, which was the textbook definition, does not hold. You should go in with anti-VEGF therapy. So does this have precedence in literature? So turns out that Rice and Wright did show this very much in their study when they looked at ranibizumab arms versus sham. They showed that for patients who did not get ranibizumab for 2 years, equity hardly went off the baseline. The moment they were given ranibizumab after 2 years, equity graph started snaking up. And also with macular edema, there was a dramatic, almost magical reduction in the macular edema once these patients were allowed after 2 years. Case 2, this is a patient who was lasered. You can see those faint spots on the multi-color image and on the IR image also. 6-7-year-old male lasered elsewhere, equity 660, status code looking at his old scans. 2 months later, again, the pandemic delay came back with slight drop in vision, 5/60. And you see that over 5 injections, 7 months, 4 ranibizumab, last one being bevacizumab, equity improves beautifully. And what is even more impressive is that the ELM and the ellipsoid zone also have improved from here to this point. So there is a resilience of the ELM and the EZ to improvement, and you should definitely put an anti-VEGF. So again, turns out there is a precedence in literature. The Restore shows this very same thing when we combine the ranibizumab alone with ranibizumab combination versus the blue line, which is lasered alone. Again, for 1 year, patients who are not treated with anti-VEGF, as soon as they were allowed anti-VEGF, the graph starts snaking up, and to the point that at 3 years, it catches up with the ranibizumab combination now. So the corollary is, do not delay, put in that anti-VEGF as soon as you can, and it doesn't seem to make a difference whether you put in that anti-VEGF at the start or 1 year later. At 3 years, you end up at the same place. Also, the reinjection rates were similar. So the USP of laser of reducing the number of reinjections doesn't seem to hold good here. So then what else worked? What about the role of lasers and steroids? So protocol I tried to answer that, looked at ranibizumab, deferred laser versus prompt laser versus laser only and IVTA prompt laser, and found that the ranibizumab did far better. And of the two, the deferred laser did better at 2 years, at 3 years, and at 5 years, and also in terms of reduction of macular edema. Now, what about reinjection rates? Turns out that you had to go hard in the first year. So in both the arms, 8 and 9 injections in the first year resulted in a dramatic drop in number of reinjections in the subsequent year. So get a grip on that disease earlier. And up to 43% of patients required no injections retreatment in the year 3. So issues were there, elevated intraocular pressure glaucoma only for the IVJ arm, and cataract surgery also. More than half the patients required cataract surgery. So what about the regimens? So there's the monthly dosing, this PRN, which is criteria based, and then you treat and extend. So obviously, monthly dosing gives you the best efficacy, but it comes with all these problems: chronic burden, not practical, infection risks, time issues. PRN dosing is anti-VEGF administered based on PRN strict criteria. Changes in equity and OCT are used. Retain study was the first one which looked at this treat and extend regimen. They compared it to PRN and they found that it was comparable to PRN. So that was about how to treat. Now, stepping back a little, how do we assess that patient in front of you? So you look at the clinical profile, fundus picture, OCT, FFA features, and equity of that eye. Also factor in fellow eye status, systemic profile, rule out masqueraders. Look at the dosing history, posology. Was it adequate? What was the drug used? What was the dosing strategy used? What are the patient factors? Very important in our setup, compliance and financial issues. Then I've grouped these together as the mitigating factors, the clinical factors. RP degeneration, macular atrophy, thinning, subfoveal fibrosis, macular ischemia, poor vision for me, less than equal to 3/60, loss of the ellipsoid ISO's integrity, the ORT is drill, sign of chronicity, and the surgical factors, epiretinal membranes or macular traction. These you desist from a very aggressive treatment strategy. Encouraging factors being pure clean edema with or without subretinal fluid, suboptimal vision 618 to 4/60. So examples of this: macular ischemia, subfoveal fibrosis, hard exudates in the macula, outer retinal tubulations, macular atrophy, drill, and the surgical factors, macular traction and epiretinal membranes. Now, in the fellow eye, as I said, look at that too. It's good vision, desist from aggressive treatment strategy. One-eyed patient can pursue an aggressive treatment strategy. Systemic factors to be ruled out: glitter zones, which can cause edema, nephropathy, hypertension, anemia, stroke, myocardial infarction, allergies. So this is a gross treatment strategy. Monthly injections, still the patient is stable, which means equity, OCT unchanged for 2 to 3 visits. Then if the mitigating factors are there, wait and extend. If the encouraging factors are there, go for treat and extend. In both cases, if it's stable, you can extend the follow-up to 3 months. If it's unstable, go back to treat and extend. Now for the tougher cases, these were the straightforward cases. If the dosing is adequate and you have given adequate and still the patient is refractory, then what do? You switch over. So this is a case example of a patient who was on Avastin, was refractory, flattened with Accentrix. This is a more common situation than this situation where a patient was refractory to Accentrix and then benefited from Avastin, but this has happened rarely. But there are enough studies which show that ranibizumab and aflibercept have been useful in switching and reducing macular edema. But the million-dollar question that comes up now is there a role of steroids at all in this anti-VEGF era? So it turns out that the MEAD study answered that Ozurdex 0.7 milligram improved significantly patients and LPD in patients previously treated with other modalities. Very interesting study on looking at the basic architecture by Huang et al. Association between hyperreflective dots on SD-OCT in macular edema response to treatment. So they looked at a bunch of patients who were treated with bevacizumab, 3 injections, and they found that the HRD number dots were more in bevacizumab non-responders than responders. 75% of the bevacizumab non-responders responded to Ozurdex, as you can see here. And interestingly, it is the converse. The HRD number was more in the Ozurdex responders than non-responders. And they said that it was probably because it was a marker of inflammation, and therefore there was a subclinical inflammation going on with microglia and monocyte cell debris being perpetrated. So they suggested a therapeutic role on the basis of this for steroids in anti-VEGF non-responders. What about anti-VEGF versus steroids? Again, Bevacizumab looked at that, and they found that when you look at equity, definitely bevacizumab did far better than Ozurdex at the end of 104 weeks. But if you look at the subset of pseudophic patients, then dexamethasone did as well as bevacizumab. And also, you see in the third graph that steroids help you get the control and reduction of the macular edema much faster. Although at 104 weeks, they end up at the same point. So it's a decent option in pseudophics. Finally, Boyer study showed that a very good role, and probably this is the USP of Ozurdex. Nothing works as well as Ozurdex in vitrectomized eyes because the dynamics is different. So if dosing is adequate, you can use Avastin to Accentrix or aflibercept or Ozurdex, as the MEAD study showed you. Elderly pseudophics, IVT and Ozurdex, especially in vitrectomized eye. Now the question, does adding steroids to anti-VEGF? Well, Protocol U looked at that to their credit, and they found that adding dexamethasone to ranibizumab did not offer significant value in terms of equity improvement. Sohail and Wang also showed that adding IVT to Avastin offers no significant advantage. We have also seen cases like that. Now, with repetitive anti-VEGF therapy, one side advantage is that the background retinopathy can also improve, and this has been shown in both ranibizumab and aflibercept. It's important that we rule out masqueraders such as hypertension, MACTEL, X-linked retinoschisis. New laser systems have come in, which is micropulse subthreshold laser, like the yellow 577. Duty cycle use is 5%. There's contiguous treatment of macular edema, which is possible. Less RP damage doesn't show up on autofluorescence and microperimetry. So finally, other alternatives that we can use and have been used inject at increased frequency, use dose hike, drug cocktail, drug way, limited without peel, but I haven't really found the pulse laser at 5% duty cycle. Iluvien is something we don't have in our hand, but is useful. Thank you.